Hello, welcome to my second video of learning Splunk with Ashok. And in this video, we'll be covering a demonstration of how to set up a simple home Splunk lab for you to practice and set up the Splunk infrastructure. So all the lab instructions are already available in my GitHub page. This is the URL. The URL will be available in the YouTube description as well. So I'll be using Microsoft Azure to host this particular Splunk lab. So I'll quickly walk you through step by step about how to create these virtual machines in Azure and also how to set up the uh, lab using Docker container environment. So I'm gonna click on create virtual machines and then create virtual machine. Right, I'm just gonna create a new resource group, Splunk Home Lab. Okay, and I'm just gonna name it Ubuntu Splunk. I'm gonna leave the region as Central India. I'm just gonna go with no infrastructure redundancy required because this is my lab setup. I'm gonna use Ubuntu Server 24 and yeah, I'm gonna choose the size with something like 4 virtual CPUs and 16 GB of RAM. And I'm gonna use password. And I'm going to allow the inbound rules SSH for now. Okay, the value must be 12 and okay. Choose the disks. I'm gonna choose 128 GB and the STD is perfectly fine for me, or STD standard SSD. Click on networking. I'm gonna leave everything as default. And click on management. I'm gonna click auto shutdown. Okay, 7 p.m. is fine. And I should select monitoring, advanced. And I'm gonna click review and create. So click create. The deployment has started. While the virtual machine is getting provision, let's go back to the GitHub page, and let's go through the contents of this particular page. So if you see, the requirement is something like Ubuntu 22.0 and above, and CPU with 4 cores, minimum 8 GB of RAM, and 128 GB of storage. That's what we have selected when creating a virtual machine. And this is going to be our architecture. Basically, we'll be creating 3 containers, and we'll be exposing the ports 8000 from a Splunk instance. This is going to be all in one Splunk instance. In our case, all the Splunk components like search head, indexer, license server, and deployment servers will be by default running in a single container. And we have got our DVWA, a vulnerable web application, which will be exposing port 8080 to the local host. We can simply run this particular setup. Once our OS is live, then we can copy this particular command, and we just have to paste it in the CLI. It will download and it will extract the contents of the code files, and then you just have to execute this particular script. If you already have a Docker installed, you can skip this step. If not, you can install the Docker using this script. Once Docker is installed, then you already have a Docker compose file in this Splunk main folder. Um, the next step is to start that particular Docker compose file using this lab.sh. So if you're running it for the first time, it will try to pull the images from the Docker repository. It's a one-time activity. You don't have to pull the images again and again until unless you delete the Docker images, or you completely delete the storage of your VM. And once you run this particular script, you can choose the option 1 to start the lab. And if you want to stop the lab, you can choose option 5 by running the same script. And you can use the option 2 to check the status. If the status is live, then you can use any of these URL to access the um, GUI. So let's go back to Azure. Yeah, and I can see that the resource is already deployed. Let's go to the resource, and I'm gonna copy my public IP, open my terminal. I'm gonna bring up my terminal here, and I'm gonna do SSH Splunk user at and the public IP. That's it. So do S, give the password. Okay, you're in. So currently I've logged in as a non-root user. I'm gonna quickly switch to super user now, and I'll just go back to my GitHub repo and start copy pasting these um, commands one by one. Yes, now the first step is completed. In the first step, the command actually copied the contents of my GitHub repository to the system, and it extracted the files. This has all the information or the scripts required to install and start the lab. So let's go to the next step. I'm going to install the Docker because this is a fresh Ubuntu system which we built now. It doesn't have Docker installed by default, so I'm going to run the Docker. If you have already installed the Docker in your system, then probably you can skip this particular step. Yes, now we have installed the Docker. Let's go back to our GitHub page, and I'm going to copy the script to start and run the lab. Copied it, paste it here. So I've got these options: one to start the lab, two to check the status, three to access the CLI of the Ubuntu server which is running the vulnerable web application, four to access the Splunk CLI, and five to stop the lab. So I'm gonna choose the option one to start the lab, and since this is the first time I'm running this lab, it will try to pull the images from the Docker repository. It may take some time depending upon your internet bandwidth and speed. And that's it. So it's completed. Now we can safely assume that our lab is started. I'm going to run the script again, and I'm going to choose the option 2 to check the status of our lab. Here if you can see, we have got three instances. One is Splunk, all-in-one instance. Second one is our DVW application, and third one is our Kali Linux. Um, as we can see, the DVW is already up and running, while our Splunk instance is still in starting stage. Let's choose the option 2 again to check the status. We have to wait until the health status turns into healthy from starting. Let's give it a minute. Meanwhile, if you see here, we are exposing the ports from our Splunk instance 8000. This is for the management access, and also we've got 9997 and other ports like 8089 etc. as we discussed in our previous video. So these are all the ports which Splunk uses to communicate with its components, to receive the logs for the management purposes, or to query the search it to indexers etc. Okay, now we can see the Splunk status has turned into healthy. Let's go back to browser, and we will try to access the GUI of the Splunk. So if we go back to the GitHub page, so the GitHub page provides the information about the URLs. So if you're running this in your PC locally using Docker, then you can access the uh, GUIs using this URL localhost colon 8000, or you can also use the Docker IP 100.100.100.100 colon 8000. So since I'm running this in my Azure environment, I need to open some additional ports. Let's do that. So I have to go back to network security groups, and then I have to add additional ports like 8000 and 8080. So for that, I will go back to home, and then I'm going to choose this Ubuntu Splunk NSG. I will add an inbound security rules. I'm going to add any custom 8080. So I'm going to mention it as DVWA. I've added it, and I'm going to add port number 8000, which is for Splunk. That's it. Let's go back to home, and then Ubuntu Splunk to copy the public IP address, and open a new tab, paste the IP colon 8080. Yeah, so this opens our web server. I have to open a page called DVWA. Yes, so this is our DVW application which we have hosted, and you can use the same IP colon 8000 to get a Splunk login page. So the default credentials are admin and change me. For Splunk, it's highly recommended to change the password if you are exposing this port to internet to avoid any misuses. Now we have logged into the Splunk dashboard. You can easily change the password either by clicking here in the administrator account settings, and you can change the password. Yes, this is one way of changing the password. The other way is, go to settings, users, and you can select the admin, and you have an option to change the password here as well. This is how you access the Splunk dashboard, and let's go back to our DVW application. So the default credentials are admin and the password is password. So when you log in for the first time, it will ask you to create a database setup. So all you need to do is scroll down and then click create or reset databases, and that's it. You can click login again and you will be able to log in into this applications. It is highly recommended you don't make this application internet facing, because it is a vulnerable application intended for training and testing purposes. So what we will do is we will try to attack this particular web application in the future labs once we complete the Splunk setup, and then we will use Splunk queries to detect those attacks uh, um, and try to mitigate that, or try to do an incident response, right? And that's about the lab. So once you're done with the lab, what you can do is you can simply go back to the CLI and run the same script, like the lab.sh. So you have to make sure that you are in the Splunk main folder for running that particular command dot slash lab.sh, and you can choose the option 5 to stop the lab. So let's do a couple of checks. Probably what you can do is you can access the DVW application by clicking option 3. So you'll get CLA access to the DVW Ubuntu server. So we will be installing Splunk's universal forwarder in this particular mission using CLI in the upcoming sessions, and also you can use uh, option 4 to access the Splunk CLI, right? Um, and click exit, run the same script again, and on the option 5 it will stop all the lab instances. So all the lab instances can be started and stopped within 1 to 2 minutes. So that's the advantage of having this particular lab instances in Docker containers. So since I've just stopped that particular lab, I'm going to check the option 2 to check the status. As you can see, none of the containers are running. What I can do is I can use the option 1 to start these labs again. For the first time, if you're starting the lab, it will try to pull the images. So I'm starting this lab for the second time. It instantly started within a minute, right? It just took 1.5 seconds to start these instances. So you can also run the command again, option 2 to check the status. As you can see, our DVW is already up within a minute, and our Splunk instances in starting stage. So that's it in this session. In next session, we will explore more from a Splunk UI point of view. We will set up indexes. We'll set up indexes, and we will enable universal forwarder to forward the logs from our DVW application to Splunk instances.